Every Magic fan is asking one question. What happened with Jonathan Isaac's contract? Let's explain and talk about the role this season today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is March 10th, 2026. My name is Philip Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com, credentialed member of the Orlando Magic media since the 2012 season. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, Jonathan Isaac, his future with the Magic is now very much in doubt after some big news regarding his contract came out on Sunday. I will explain to you what it all means. Let's talk about why Jonathan Isaac still has a big role to play the rest of the season, and we'll take a look ahead to a big week for the Orlando Magic. We're all riding high. We'll see where we're at a week from now. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day. Every day you can make Locked On Magic even bigger part of your day by being one of our Orlando Magic dailies, our everydayers who listen 5 days a week, who make us part of your regular podcast rotation, to make us your first listen of the day, who are part of our everydayer club. We want to thank you again for helping make Locked On Magic such a great and growing community. And thank you for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. There's been a few questions that have bounced around Magic fans, and certainly one big criticism. It's a criticism I do happen to share. That while I think that, and I see you all who write fire Mosley, fire Weltman in the comments, while I do think that Jeff Weltman has done a very good job as the lead decision maker and executive for the Orlando Magic. He's gotten all of the big stuff right. Hiring Steve Clifford, hiring Jamal Mosley, 2 for 2 on coaches. Say what you want about Steve Clifford. Say what you want about Jamal Mosley. They have accomplished their goals for this team. 2 for 2 on coaches. With high draft picks, he selected Franz Wagner, selected Jalen Suggs, selected Paolo Banchero. You could throw Anthony Black in there. And there have been some draft misses, and we're going to get to one here in a minute. But the big decisions have all worked out. But now with the big decisions, those contracts, all of that said, we are dealing with the margins. We are dealing with the little things. And for this Magic team to improve, and look, even if the Magic, and look, Magic may still have a successful season. They may still end up 5th with all the injuries they've had. And the Magic could probably realistically say, like, we don't need to do anything crazy, just little tweaks and some injury luck, and we're going to be fine. They're probably going to say that. The Magic need to win the margins because they don't have money to spend anymore. They need to get their extensions right. And Anthony Black obviously has a big extension decision coming this offseason, and we'll see if the Magic extend him this offseason or wait till next offseason. All indications that I have are the Magic are going to try and keep Anthony Black. Like, I don't think he's going anywhere for the moment. The Magic are going to be a tax team for the first time next year. They're likely to be an apron for years to come. And so handing out contracts like candy and getting those wrong is going to hurt. And as certainly as we were in the depths and lows of this season, we all had to sit there and think the Magic have a lot of not dead weight money, but bad money on their books. Opinions on Wendell Carter certainly differ. I'm on the pro Wendell side. I think there's a lot of people who are not. And maybe that is a space the Magic look to improve this summer. But Wendell Carter starts his new contract extension next year, a 3-year contract extension. I believe the 3rd year as a player is a team option, starting at about $18 million. Jonathan Isaac, though, has been, I don't want to say the albatross around the team's neck, But that renegotiate and extend contract that was signed 2 years ago, it looked questionable at the time that it was signed, and it feels even more questionable now. And the Magic just simply cannot afford to spend $14.5 million over the next 3 years. I think it's 14.5, 14.5, 15 in the next 3 years on a player who's averaging 10 minutes per game, on a player who is shooting worse than 20% from three, on a player who still admittedly says, like, when he plays too much, his injured knee gets sore. His troublesome left knee gets sore. Despite how good defensively he could be, and we'll talk about what his role is going to be the rest of the year because he'll play now. It has become clear that the Magic had to get off this contract. And again, I hate, this is a part of the job that I hate. Jonathan Isaac, it's not his fault he got that money. Don't hate the player, hate the game. The Magic made a mistake. The Magic invested in a guy. They gave a guy a chance. They said, we still believe in your elite defensive level and you will get healthy. And look, he's healthy and he's not elite anymore, or he's not good enough to help them win in the playoffs. And so for one of the first times, the Magic had to get ruthless. And I'm proud of them a little bit for this, honestly, even though I don't like the result, because these are people we're talking about, not just numbers, not just cap figures. But the Magic appear to have signaled they're going to move on from Jonathan Isaac. This was the news, and it hit just before tip-off on Sunday. I confirmed it with the source. This is what's happened. According to Bobby Marks of ESPN, and again, confirmed by a source independently by me, the Orlando Magic and Jonathan Isaac agreed to amend the trigger in his contract that guarantees next season. Now, when the Magic signed this extension with Jonathan Isaac, they put phrasing or clause in the contract that said his contract the next season is only guaranteed for the full year if he plays 52 games the previous season. Now, a lot of Magic fans would conspiracy theory and said, well, the Magic are at 51, that Isaac's played 51 games. Of course, they're going to hold him out. Apparently, this amendment was agreed to near the All-Star break. So wasn't something immediate. Jonathan Isaac's injury right now is legit. I talked to him on Saturday before the game. His injury is legit. And he's frustrated by it as much as anything. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a minute. But this is what's important for non-cap nerds to know. Instead of Jonathan Isaac's 2027 salary of $14.5 million being guaranteed when he played his 52nd game this season, he's played 51 this year. It is now guaranteed if he is still on the roster on June 28th. All the Magic did was change that trigger date from games played to June 28th. And so the Magic have one more trade window to try and trade him for something if that's what they want to do, if they can find anybody to take him. Otherwise, the Magic are on the hook for $6.5 million for the 2027 season. Will cut their losses. Talking to a few people, talking to a few other reporters, and you know, the implication and the impression that I have gotten is that the Magic were planning to do this anyway. If he didn't agree to this amendment, they would have cut him. They very realistically could have cut him now or simply not played him the rest of the season. This allows Jonathan Isaac to play, and this allows the Magic to get what they need from him, because they do need him at this point, while also acknowledging that this is probably over. I would be shocked if Jonathan Isaac is on the roster on June 29th. I would be shocked. Because frankly, I like J.I. He's a good dude. Always well-meaning at the very least. Just the most genuinely nice person in the world. You know, there's a lot you could say about Jonathan Isaac and some of his associations. He is a genuinely good and nice and kind person. But he is not performing on the basketball court. Not at the level that the Magic need. And so doing this sets the Magic up to be able to spend on Anthony Black's contract. Yes, going from 14.5 to $6.5 million, that is $8 million in savings in salary, and then another $8 million in savings and tax payments. So it saves the Magic $16 million in actual money out the door. And yes, this deal gets the Magic about $3 million under the first apron. Now, I don't think they will stay there. They're going to have to sign some players. I think they'd only have 10 active players, so they'd have to sign at least 4 players that cost you more than $3 million anyway, but that's the deal. So, basic question answered. All the Magic did here was change the trigger date. Instead of game 52 or Isaac's 52nd game played, it's June 28th. And it certainly signals that the longest tenured player on the Orlando Magic is probably out the door. But that does not mean he does not have a role to play the rest of the season. And this opens the door for him to play while the Magic rearrange their books. So let's talk about Isaac's role the rest of the season, the impact that he can have coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Like being in an NBA arena, the crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple. That's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs with the fans. I was out on the road, happy to be back in Orlando, happy to be back home, get some rest tomorrow. The Magic have off tomorrow. I was on the road. One of the reasons I wanted to go on this road trip was my Northwestern Wildcats were playing Minnesota at the Barnes-Williams Arena. And I knew the only way I was going to get tickets to the game, the right tickets to the game, was on Game Time. So I went on Game Time at first, and they had $60 tickets up in the upper ball. I was like, that's too much. I'll wait, because I know on Game Time, the prices go down the closer you get to the event. So if you ever have a decision to go to a game on a whim, go to Game Time, because about a month later, about 2 weeks before the event, $60 tickets, 4 rows behind the Northwestern bench. It's like right over the tunnel that they walk down to get to their locker room. Had a great time, met some great Minnesota fans sitting next to me, had a great time watching it. My Wildcats did not win, but Game Time got me into the building, and I cannot recommend Game Time enough. Whether you're using their zone deals, whether you're using their digital view to see what your seat looks like from the digital view of what your seat looks like, Game Time has you covered with even upfront pricing. The price that they list is the price you pay. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. We want to thank you for making Locked On Magic your day every day. We want to thank you for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. If you're thinking about joining the Everydayer Club, now is the time. Again, you get ad-free shows, the ad-free audio feed of this show, and access to our group chat on Discord. And if you're signed up before the NCAA tips off, so you got a week, you can get into our Everydayer Club bracket pool on Discord, or a chance to win Locked On merch. You see me wear my Locked On hat. Where do you think that comes from? This should be a lot of fun. Test your skills against the Locked On hosts. Right now, you can use code MARCH, MARCH, to get your first month free. Head to lockedonmagic.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes below to learn. I feel a little bit like this is that episode of Family Guy where they go like, yep, yes, guys, this is a Meg episode. Look, listen to all my episodes. Like, part of what we do to the details. We talk about the little things. I got time to fill. I got 5 days. It is what it is. That's the show format. So if this is a little too insider baseball, if that first segment was a little too insider baseball for you, I tried to explain it really simply, and I didn't go too crazy. And hopefully that like gets you to like some of my bigger picture thoughts of Jeff Weltman. Like, yeah, like right now you got to be ruthless. It can't just be the power of friendship going to get Desmond Bane and all that costs. Trading Tyus Jones and cutting bait on that, cutting bait on Jonathan Isaac right now. Yeah, it is a different era for the Magic, and it requires some different things. And again, we'll see how that evolves over the course of the next few months. But Jonathan Isaac playing in these games is really important. This is not a situation where the Magic could have probably afforded to just cut bait now. They needed this amendment. They needed this freedom because they're still in the fight. They're still in the hunt. They are still in the race. There is still a lot for them to do. And for them to be the best version of themselves, again, that best version may not be what we thought it would be in November. That best version is probably not good enough to be a championship level team quite yet. But for this group to be the best version of themselves, they need Jonathan Isaac. Because before this last injury, before this knee soreness, this knee strain that has taken Jonathan Isaac out of the last 3 or 4 games, Jonathan Isaac was looking more and more like himself. He was looking more and more like the player who can dominate games with his defense. Who's just, for however long he's in there, 10, 12, 13 minutes, is just a terror on that end. And on top of that, a player who can be impactful alongside other players, even if his offense isn't there. Look, Isaac's having a really rough year, and the last 2 years have been abysmally bad. And not because of his defense. His defense has mostly been fine. Even last year when he put on the weight and struggled to definitely looked a step slower. The Magic just couldn't do anything with him on the floor. He was just such a drain offensively. It canceled out his defensive impact. This year, Isaac's averaging a career low 2.6 points per game and shooting just 18.4% from 3. It's not good enough. And when he's in the game, especially in the playoffs, it's going to be a problem. But the Magic are still really good with him when he's on the floor defensively. The Magic have a team best 106 defensive rating with him on the floor. And again, that's not all him, but that's 7.3 points per 100 possessions better than the team's overall average at the time. At the time I wrote that before Saturday's game. They had 2 of their best defensive performances of the year on Saturday, so maybe he's not all they need to do. Since he also ranked the Magic have a 106.4 defensive rating with Isaac on the floor. The Magic are plus 4.9 points per 100 possessions with a 110.9 defensive rating when Jonathan Isaac is on the floor without Mo Wagner and Goga Batadze. So when he's the backup center, they're even doing well. But beyond that, it's just the way that he's moving. It's just the way that he can impact plays. The Magic right now are running a straight 1 through 5 switching defensive scheme. You go watch a Magic game, they switch 1 through 5. It's worked for them. It's focused them up a little bit. It's kept guys on the perimeter a little bit more. They're protecting the paint a lot better than they were before the All-Star break. I am skeptical that will work in the playoffs, but when you have a guy like Jonathan Isaac that you could deploy like that, it sure helps a lot. And Isaac could get out on people. He's getting deflections. Like defensively, he's looking much closer to the player the Magic envisioned and the Magic hoped for. And that's his role for the rest of the year. He'll play a lot of backup center. He'll play alongside Mo Wagner to help Mo Wagner as he continues to kind of get back into shape, because Mo's never going to be a great defender. Again, he tries, and trying is half the battle. You try, you'll get to play. But Isaac can still be this major game changer on defense because he will block shots that shouldn't be blocked. That block on Durant a few weeks ago was incredible. He had some crazy good plays in that game. And the Magic tend to win his minutes. Now, again, figuring out how to get him going or make him function within the offense is certainly a major question. I'm not pretending otherwise. I'm not sitting here pretending, oh, it's all good. It's not. The Magic need more from Isaac. But he has a role to play the rest of the year, even if it's just 10 to 12 minutes a game. And he can still make that big of an impact. But yeah, like I mentioned, it now feels like a last hurrah. And so the Magic set this up so that they can use Isaac. They don't have to dance around this 52 game thing. They're not, they don't have to worry about saving that money. That money's saved. And Generally, like a lot of people ask me, why did Isaac and his camp agree to this? And I think it simply came down to they were going to bench or cut him anyway. So at least now he gets to play in the playoffs and showcase to other teams like, hey, I can come give me a contract. I can still play. That's kind of the deal. And again, it's business. It's the unfortunate part of the NBA. It's business. But Isaac still does have a role to play for this team. I want to take a moment to head to the week ahead. I don't usually do like kind of a schedule post, but we're in the thick of it now. We're in the thick of it of the race for 6. Let's talk about the week ahead for all the teams in the race for 6. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at TurboTax. It is the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment, that's not the most convenient. Sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve, while you get real-time notifications as you go up. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to TurboTax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. College basketball is nonstop this month. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want. Rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever you want. And you can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Then you can apply that profit boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. We got a lot of games coming up this week. UCF playing in the Big 12 tournament, Florida in the SEC tournament, lots of NCAA tournament action on the line. This is your way to get in and invest in your team. So go safe, go bold, ride with the teams you've been following all season long. It's your parlay, your style, and now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play game. I will say this repeatedly over the next month because we got a month left. I will say this repeatedly. If you take care of your business will take care of you. And the Orlando Magic the Magic now actually have a lot in their control. Because the Magic won and they stole that game against Minnesota and they beat Washington, they beat Dallas. They went 4-0 this week to get this 4-game win streak. Because the Magic won those games, we sit here and the Magic control their destiny. Orlando at 35-28 is 6th in the Eastern Conference, a game back of Toronto. Technically tied with Miami. The Heat still have played 2 more games. They're 36-29. The Magic are, again, like I always say, focus on the loss column, not the win column. The Magic are 1 game in the loss column behind Toronto, 1 game in the loss column ahead of Miami, 2 games in the loss column ahead of Philadelphia after their loss to Cleveland. And just as importantly, 3 games ahead in the loss column of the Atlanta Hawks. The Magic are now 5 games in the loss column ahead of the Charlotte Hornets. Now that the Hornets have lost 2 in a row, starting to look a little mortal on this West Coast trip. A little less worried about Charlotte than we were maybe a week ago. But again, like, the only reason we can sit here and say the Magic are in control of their own destiny is because they won. They took care of their business. We're going to talk about the other teams here in a minute. But the Magic now essentially control their own destiny for the 5 seed, not just the 6. Let's get greedy. For the 5 seed. because the Magic play the Raptors in Toronto in late March, in about 2 weeks. And the winner of that game wins the season series. And so the Magic control their own destiny for that. This week is a monumental week. It is a difficult week for the Magic. And that's why I want to make sure we talk about why this week is important before we dive headfirst into it. Orlando's got to make up games. I've made this point to a lot of people. And I actually was talking to Mo, Dez, and Jet in the locker room after the game Sunday. And they were like, man, we got another back-to-back this week. And I turned to them like, yeah, you guys have played the fewest games in the league. You got to catch up at some point. And that's true. The Magic have played the fewest games in the league. It's 63 games so far. The Raptors are also at 63. They are at 65. The Sixers are at 64. At some point, they're going to make up those games. And I think one of those games gets made up this week. It's not just that the Magic have a busy week ahead of them. It's who they play. So the Magic start off playing the Cleveland Cavaliers on Wednesday. Nationally televised game on ESPN. The Cavs beat the Sixers on Monday at home, just coming off a loss to the Celtics. They're 6-4 over their last 10. They're playing really well since they got James Harden. They're sitting fourth in the East. That game is, again, another one that you're trying to steal. But to me, that game is more about the Magic, again, proving that what they're doing is real. Orlando is 7-3 in their last 10 games. 7-3 since the All-Star break. They've gotten some nice wins. They beat the Lakers. They beat the Clippers on the road. They beat the Timberwolves on Saturday. Again, that win Saturday was a legitimate win. But they've also feasted on a lot of bad teams. Sacramento, Dallas, Washington without Trae Young, Milwaukee. You got to feast on the bad teams. Don't apologize for beating bad teams. Just do it. But the loss to Houston, the loss to Detroit still linger. And certainly Saturday kind of washed some of that taste out of the mouth because that was a big win against the Wolves. But the game on Wednesday is very much a prove-it game. If the Magic beat the Cavs on Wednesday, that's like we're here to play. And not just that, Orlando's lost the first two games to Cleveland. They weren't particularly close. And obviously that was pre-Harden trade. So now, let's see what this potential playoff matchup looks like. Because again, I'm greedy. Let's go for the 5 seed. I want to see this team finish as high as they can. I'm not worried about matchups. I don't care about that. Don't try and manipulate matchups. Just win your games. Take care of your business. Your business will take care of you. But then the Magic play the Wizards. Wizards have lost 8 in a row. They're playing Trae Young, but not really trying. Got to take care of your business on the second night of a back-to-back, home back-to-back. Do the Wizards play again? I'm going to check that real fast. But you're probably at a rest disadvantage in that game. The Wizards are, who do they play? The Wizards are going to be in Miami on Tuesday. So, again, we'll get to the Heat here in a minute. Then on Saturday, you have this monumentally massive game against the Miami Heat. Now, Orlando swept the Heat. They're 4-0 against Miami, and then 6-0 if you include the 2 preseason games. But this game is humongous because, again, the Magic have won the tiebreaker. Miami's got to finish ahead of Orlando to win anything. So they have that in their back pocket. But you beat them, you are almost certainly, again, you look at Miami's schedule this week, this is a easy week for Miami. Miami plays Washington on Tuesday, Milwaukee on Thursday, and then Orlando on Saturday. Then they're at Charlotte versus the Lakers, at the Rockets versus the Spurs, at Cavs. So from March 17th to March 27th, those 10 days, those 11 days are going to be rough on the Heat. But the Heat are playing really, really well, so maybe it won't be. The Magic are the start of a tough stretch of games for Miami. And then on top of that, after this week, Miami's schedule's really hard. They still got a game at Indiana. They still got 2 games versus Washington. And then they close versus the Hawks at home on the last day of the season. What I'm getting at here then, what I'm trying to say and get at here is the Heat are probably going to pass the Magic by the end of the week. But if the Magic win this game Saturday, all the math changes. That doesn't put Miami away. like beating Milwaukee, and Milwaukee did to themselves, but beating Milwaukee kind of told the Bucks, like, guys, you're done. Go home, rest. Don't bother. The Magic beat the Heat on Saturday. Even if Miami is technically ahead of them in the standings, they know they got tough games coming. The Magic's run is coming at the end of March. Like I said, I believe right now it's not necessarily that the Magic need to like hold the boat steady or just don't need to do that. They need to win. And they are winning. But I really think Orlando's going to start picking up wins after this stretch of games that I'm talking about. They go, starting March 21st, they go Lakers, Pacers at home, at Cleveland, tough back-to-back. Don't know why that's a back-to-back. Sacramento, at Toronto, March 29th. Phoenix, Atlanta, at Dallas, at New Orleans. Late March, early April is when I think the Magic make a real big push. And again, they're making a big push right now. So it's all working out pretty well. The Heat need to make their push now, and the Heat are making their push now. And they stole that game from Detroit on Sunday. It would not shock me if Miami's ahead of Orlando because this stretch is tough. Because after the Magic play the Heat on Saturday, they go to Atlanta on Monday. Magic City Monday has been canceled, but Magic are still there and still going to do their thing. The Hawks right now, like I mentioned, started to sneak up in the standings. They've won their last 6. Orlando's won their last 4. Miami's won their last 5. Atlanta's won their last 6. They're 33-31. They are 2.5 games back of Orlando. Again, the Magic haven't beaten the Hawks this year. They're 0-2 against the Hawks way early in the season, remember? This is a game where it's like, we got to put that team in their place. We got to tell that team you are not on our level. Don't even think about it. Because if you win, assuming everyone stays even, if you win, now they're only a game and a half out. And again, it might be closer because of the teams the Magic are playing. Then the Magic play the Thunder at home on a back-to-back. Really, really tough back-to-back. Look, OKC just beat Denver. They looked really impressive. They've won their last 6. The time to pick off Oklahoma City is done. Like they're done doing their struggle thing. They're good again. And so this is a big week to just prove that the Magic are playing the way that their record is suggesting that they're playing right now. Look, it's one thing to dominate the Bucks. It's one thing to be able to pull a game out of where against the Mavericks. But now you got to beat other playoff teams. And one thing the Magic have struggled with at times is to beat good teams. They're getting a lot of good teams this week. They're getting a lot of tough teams. They don't play a team that is outside of the playoff picture until March 23rd when they play the Pacers. Because after Oklahoma City, they go to Charlotte. Charlotte's not easy. Charlotte's really tough right now. Then they play the Lakers. Lakers can get you. Magic needed a last-second victory to beat the Lakers. Then you get the Pacers on the 23rd. Again, back-to-back at Cleveland. Sacramento the 26th. At Toronto after 2 days off. Fantastic for a huge game. Then Phoenix, Atlanta at home. Dallas, New Orleans on the road. Detroit, Minnesota to close your home schedule. Chicago, Boston to close the season. The Magic schedule is not easy. There are very few gimmies left on the schedule. And again, Washington's won this week. Indiana's won. Sacramento's won. Dallas might be. New Orleans is probably still going to be playing hard. Chicago's won. So there are a few left. And again, the Magic are going to get to 41 wins. They're going to get to it's going to take 46, 47 wins to get the 5 seed. 45 might do it, but it's going to be pushing it. And so again, like the Magic have said, one game at a time. Don't worry about the big picture. Just take care of what's in front of you. If the Magic do that, none of it matters because the Magic control their destiny. But this is a big week to keep that control because you're going to be playing a lot of teams directly in the race with you. And those games matter a whole lot more. In the next 5 games, the next 5 games through the Oklahoma City game next Tuesday, through the next 5 games, the Magic need to go 3-2. If they're going to go 2-3, Miami and Atlanta are the ones you want. But let's assume they beat Washington. 3-2 with a win over Miami and a win over Atlanta, that's a really good run. That probably puts some distance between you and 7. Because again, Miami lost the season series already. That puts some distance between you and 7. And that means you have full control over your destiny to get the 5 seed. Get greedy. We're in this thing. We're in this thing. It's a playoff race once again. I want to thank you again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the places you download podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out Orlando. You can also check us out on YouTube. Just search for Locked On Magic. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. Also, be sure to check out our Everydayer Club. Join our March Madness pool. Get the ad-free audio feed of this podcast and join our Discord server in our Everydayer Club at lockedonmagic.supercast.com. That's lockedonmagic.supercast.com. As always, thank you for your support. We want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. For those of you on video, we're going to send you to the first ever 24/7 National NBA YouTube channel on audio. Make sure you make your second listen NBA game night on Locked On NBA. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. We will be back tomorrow to recap the third quarter of the season and look ahead to the final, now 19 games of the season. We will chat the goals for the fourth quarter of the season as the race to the playoffs becomes very real. We'll get to that on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic. Hopefully I'll be over being weirded out by how cold it was in Minneapolis and Milwaukee. But we'll see you then. We want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic. This has been Philip Rossman. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.